let's unpack all of this now with Max Blumenthal in Washington, D.C. He's an author and the editor-in-chief of the news website Grey Zone. Max, thank you so much for joining us. First off,
for having me.
Just explain exactly how powerful this AIPAC lobby is and how long they've been around, because they seem to have a lot of money to really be pushing their cause.
Well, AIPAC is one of the two most powerful lobbies in the United States, not just the most powerful pro-Israel lobbies, but most powerful lobby, maybe on par with the National Rifle Association, which is associated with mass shootings, the plague of mass shootings in the U.S. AIPAC guarantees, with actually relatively small donations by their standards, that the Israelis will be able to conduct mass shootings across Palestine. So there are two things to understand about what AIPAC is doing now, something it's always done, but which is much more insidious and somewhat desperate than in the past. Desperate because after October 7th, Israel stands exposed on the world stage. It faces enormous international pressure, and because the progressive base of the Democratic Party is turning away from the special relationship. So they're targeting progressives like Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman, also particularly because they're Black. They're very threatened by Black America, the organic support for Palestinians that Black America has always shown. So they always want to take out these kind of legislators in majority Black districts. But what they do is they launder their attacks and their support for the pro-Israel candidate behind a stealth pack. As I said, they've always done this, but now this is the de facto strategy. AIPAC operates behind something called the United Democracy Project. They funnel money through super PACs that have names that have nothing to do with Israel. And then they attack these candidates like Cori Bush or Jamal Bowman, who was previously defeated, not on the basis of their opposition to Israel's assault on Gaza, but on kitchen table issues or with disinformation about how they opposed Joe Biden's infrastructure bill. So these races don't actually seem to the average voter like they're being decided on the basis of Israel, but they are.
Max, it seems that there seems to be a lot of manipulation here, and it would make one wonder, should lobby groups as powerful as these, should they be regulated, or are they regulated in the United States at all? Because misinformation, especially in times of the election coming up soon, seems to be rife across the country.
Well, we're in an era where billionaires own this country. The U.S. is effectively an oligarchy, and they have untrammeled control over the political process and campaigns, thanks to the Citizens United decision by a Republican majority Supreme Court, which allows unlimited super PAC donations. This means basically that our elections are unregulated. Money controls politics, and then you have the added layer with AIPAC of them not being subjected like other foreign lobbies to the Foreign Agent Registration Act, which would require them to act as a foreign agent and prevent them from using these stealth PACs that make it seem as though these candidates are just attacking one another on the basis of domestic issues. They would have to disclose all of their activity, who they meet with, to the Justice Department. But what AIPAC says is, we're just another Jewish organization in America. We're just Jewish. And thereby they increase anti-Semitism. What a lot of people are seeing, and you'll see this on social media, with AIPAC pumping $8 million into Wesley Bell to defeat Cori Bush, or $15 million into George Latimer, is they are seeking to you have basically the anti-Semitic framework of looking at this as wealthy Jewish Zionists seeking to control poor Black people in urban areas. And that's the danger that AIPAC presents.
Max, but AIPAC, you say, obviously has a lot of Jewish support, but I understand that it also has many Christian groups who are part of it as well, who are very supportive of Israel.
Yeah, I mean, look at who AIPAC's spokesman is. His name is Marshall Whitman, and he emerged from the Christian right organization of Pat Robertson, one of the leading Christian Zionists and televangelists in America. Then he found his way into the corporate wing of the Democratic Party and now has a job at AIPAC. AIPAC works heavily with Christian Zionists. They helped set up the Christians United for Israel organization of Pastor John Hagee. So AIPAC isn't actually a Jewish organization. Many, if not most, Jews who are polled disagree with AIPAC's support for example, a war on Iran, or AIPAC's heavy support for MAGA conservatives. But they present themselves as a Jewish group and thereby escape any regulation or scrutiny for what they in fact are, which is a foreign apartheid lobby, which is willing to invest $8 million into one single congressional race in order to guarantee $4 billion a year and total diplomatic support for Israel.
Max, let's just move on to the issue of the war in Gaza, this continued war. And you've spent time and you've reported from both Israel and Palestine. And what's happened since October 7th is that it's really shone a spotlight in the worst possible way on what's happening in Gaza, what's been happening there for decades. Do you think this is making any difference in the United States to ordinary Americans who are now finding out what's been happening there for such a long time, and them raising their voices for the government to do more to protect Palestinians and to hold Israel accountable?
I think there is an element within what would have been the base of the Democratic Party that is highly educated, activist-minded, social justice-oriented, that has seen what's been happening in Gaza for almost 10 months now, over 300 days of just unbearable human suffering, and has seen the way the U.S. political class has responded by not issuing a single red line to Israel. We saw the State Department spokesman today, Matthew Miller, declare that Israel can investigate itself when videotape has emerged of Israeli soldiers raping Palestinian male prisoners at the Sde Teman concentration camp. They see that day after day, and they're becoming hopeless. And they see no purpose in participating in electoral politics, just as they see that the voices that they had within Congress on this issue, people like Cori Bush, are just being taken out with Super Bowl-style ad blitzes, $8 million of disinformation campaigns. So there's a sense of hopelessness within a section of the Democratic Party's base. And we'll see if they show up at the Democratic National Convention, which is going to take place next week in Chicago in the shadow of the riots that occurred in 1968 in that same city against the Vietnam War. Will this element show up, and will they make their voice heard, or are they so hopeless that they're just going to stay home?
Certainly will be interesting to see what happens at the DNC. Max Blumenthal, really appreciate your time and your analysis. Thank you very much.